Okay, I think it's working. It's picking us up. It's flashing. This is Representative Sheila Hochhauser, and this is February 14th. Okay, what years have you served in the Kansas legislature?
I was first elected in November of '88, and so the first year I served was '89. So I served 2 years.
This is your third year there. Okay. And you've been in the House the whole time?
Yes.
Okay. Are you a Democrat or a Republican, or why?
Why? More philosophically aligned with the Democrats.
How long have you been a registered Democrat?
I think ever since I was old enough to vote.
It's interesting. I think most people are agreeing with that.
I voted once. I registered once as a Republican so I could vote for Joan Anderson in the presidential election.
Oh.
But that was just for primary.
That's interesting that you'd have done that. You transferred your registration right back. Okay. Can you describe your first election or appointment? What was it like?
Oh, mine was a total upset. I beat the majority leader of the House. He was an 8-year incumbent, and so was
who was this?
Joan Adam.
That's right. Okay.
And so it was a true surprise to everyone, including myself.
How did you do it?
Well, just a lot of hard work. I had a wonderful group of volunteers working with me who worked so hard. They were just great. Lots of support from my family and friends, obviously, and just really a lot of hard work on the part of a million people.
Okay. Who were some of these people? Did you belong to some organizations? Had you sort of some type of organizational structure that helped you, or what was it that?
Well, I had one group of women friends who were like faculty mostly in the English department at K-State, who I had been.
I see.
We had a kind of literary group or discussion group that would meet, every couple of weeks or once a month. And that group was very supportive, and they held my first fundraiser, and they did a lot of, letter addressing and writing and all that sort of stuff, and formed the core, although not the whole group by any means, of the Letter to the Editor campaign for a local
I see.
newspaper. So that was helpful. I'm trying to think if there was any other organized group that I really called on. But I don't think I did in an organized group fashion. There were people I called on that were members of groups that I was a member of, but not as the group.
Not as just more as individuals.
Right.
What kind of a campaign plan did you have, and how did you campaign? Obviously successfully.
Kind of a campaign plan, I'm not sure.
Well, did you do door-to-door?
Yes.
Did you do a lot of media advertising?
Did a lot of newspaper advertising because I was unknown. Except in certain circles.
And he'd been in the House for
8 years.
8 years, yeah.
Yeah, and as I say, he was the majority leader, so he was perceived to have lots of power. I guess I would say we did a lot of educating through the media. Newspaper, a lot of newspapers spent a lot of money on newspaper ads, and then also did door-to-door, did radio.
Did radio too.
Didn't have a lot of money, but did maybe two weeks worth of radio. I don't know if it went much beyond that. 2 weeks or so.
Any television spots or?
Well, no, not that we did, but the Thursday before the election on Tuesday, WIBW came to town specifically to film our race and spent about 3 hours with me, and I just have to assume the same with my opponent, because they were targeting races that were considered to be close.
How interesting, yeah.
And so that was the first inkling we had that it was regarded as a close race outside of Manhattan.
Now, you said that was the first inkling you had it was close. Did you kind of think it was close yourself?
There were people who were real believers in the campaign who felt that I was either going to lose in a very close race or win large. and my husband was one of those people.
How interesting.
But that if it was a loss, it was going to be very close. I can't say that I ever felt that. I mean, I think I just campaigned and I didn't think about anything except not making a fool of myself. That was really a big issue to me.
Well, how far ahead of the actual filing date did you decide to run?
About 2 days.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
So you didn't have a long planning period either, or a long time to really campaign.
I had been approached in '86 about running against this guy, but I had declined at that time. And when the Democrats came and approached me again in '88, I gave it a lot more thought. But they didn't approach me until like Memorial Day, and the filing deadline is what, June 10th or something.
Yeah,
so
it's really close.
Yeah,
That's amazing. How did you finance your campaign? You talked about donations from friends. Did you have any?
And family.
And family?
Yeah, I was really lucky that my family isn't wealthy by any means, but my mother sent some money, and my sister and my uncles and aunts all sent some money. That was how I did the first part of it, to get the seed money. And then, and with friends. And then, as I said, my women's group held a fundraiser.
This is an English department literary group.
Yeah. And they invited their friends. And so it was a broadening of the base into the university community.
I see.
And, I mean, I was not by any means the university candidate, but I was, their entree into the university helped me broaden my base at the university.
What besides that club, what other associations do you have with the university?
My husband is a professor.
I see. In what department?
Entomology.
Entomology. I see. Well, that gives you some acquaintance with different people. Yeah. Did the media ever endorse you, or how did they treat you?
I have to say that given that we have a very Republican newspaper in Manhattan, that I got, during that campaign, I would say very fair treatment. At the end, when the only way we were able to win, I think, was because we exposed my opponent's voting record in great detail, and showed that he was not voting for the district.
Your education program then must have been excellent to get that message out.
And relentless. I mean, I must admit, as I went back and I looked at it for this past campaign, I never realized during the first campaign how hard-hitting and relentless it was. And in reflecting on it this time, I was amazed. It just was, it wasn't nasty or cruel or negative in the way that we didn't ever go after the guy in terms of personal things or family, or we just didn't. But on the issues, we were relentless. And so, I guess it was successful. People told me after the campaign, people who voted, and this is all socioeconomic levels of people, that they got the message that this guy was not looking out for their interests. And that was people who cared about the university, who cared about social programs, who cared about the elderly. They each had a different reason for voting against him. But
so it wasn't one issue you were talking about?
It wasn't one issue. It was just the overall sense that they got that he was not looking out for their interests, and that was what he was supposed to do.
Now that's a good campaign strategy, it sounds like. Now, your district was Manhattan. Is it all, how far? East, west, north, and south?
It was at that time, before redistricting, the eastern two-thirds of the city.
Eastern two-thirds, okay. And who was in the west? Who had that?
Catherhurt.
Oh, okay. Well, how was it changed then in redistricting?
It was a little bit of rural Manhattan, a rural township of Manhattan was added to the north, and over the Pottawatomie County line, into Pottawatomie County from Raleigh. Was added. So I have St. George and township and a township called Blue Township, which is really the Pottawatomie part of Manhattan.
Did any relatives precede you in the house? Anyone in your family or your husband's family? You have no connection that way or experience through someone else? Okay. Now you've described a few of the issues that were important, sort of briefly to your constituents. How did they feel about these issues? What were they wanting, like the university community? What kinds of legislation were they wanting?
They wanted, and I think they still do, full support for the university agenda. I mean, they wanted the margin of excellence to be funded. They wanted someone up there who would be an advocate for as much money to be poured into that university as possible, because they view it as the most important economic resource we have in Manhattan. And it is.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no question. It employs more people. And I don't just, in my district, have just faculty. I have a lot of classified employees.
Oh, yes.
As well. Yeah. And so it just was clear that they wanted to see there be fair pay plans for university employees and fair classified as well as faculty.
You have a lot of students too, probably.
Yes, I have Aggieville in my district, and I have the downtown corridor.
And in the general election, they would be there mostly to vote. It wouldn't be like in the summer primary.
Well, and it was truly because it was a presidential year as well that they participated more actively.
Who was your opponent this last election?
His name was Stanley Herman.
Okay, and you won handily, I believe, if I remember right. What other issues besides the funding of the university do you feel are important to the people in your district?
I think that my district is like 33% or so older Kansans. I think that's over 60. It might be over 65.
33%. My
it's
goodness,
really very high. I have all the senior citizen complexes that are in Manhattan in my district.
So all their issues are real.
The senior centers are both in my district. Yes, and so I think, and they tend to be concentrated residentially in my district. So the older neighborhoods are in my district, and so people who still are in their own homes are even elderly. So older Kansans issues are very, very important.
Do you think there are issues that are identified by legislators and by the public as women's issues? And if so, do you feel like you're expected to promote these, or how do you feel about the whole idea that there are some issues that can be labeled women's issues?
You know, in the sense that might trivialize them or cause people to not give them due emphasis, I don't like it. And I wish that we could find another term like family issues or children's issues, something that sort of gets it away from women's issues, because I think that ultimately what we're talking about is the productivity of our population, and that seems to me to be a non-gender issue.
Good. That's a good point. How would you describe yourself, if you could describe yourself? I don't like labels, but at the same time everyone's using them. Would you describe yourself as a conservative, a liberal, or something else if you were the one finding a label for yourself and your positions?
I guess I would term myself as a responsible spending liberal.
Okay, good. Okay, as a freshman legislator, a little over 2 years ago now, did you have a mentor or someone that sort of helped you find your way around and help you get appointed to the committees you want and that type of thing?
I had a couple, maybe even more than a couple. I had a lot of people looking out for me up here. I think I was very, very lucky.
Good. Who were they? Would you care to?
Well, I think that I got a lot of good information and insight from Donna Whiteman, who's the majority leader. She's wonderful. Also from Kathleen Sebelius and Joan Wagner both. And also from the administrative assistant to Marvin Burgess, Tom Lynn.
Okay, good.
I got a lot of help.
What committees were you appointed to your first term?
Judiciary and Public Health and Welfare. I'm a lawyer, so judiciary makes sense. And I have a master's degree in public health, so that was a pretty natural one also. And then I was on the Legislative Educational Planning Committee. That's an interim assignment.
Are you on the same committees this time?
No, I'm on Judiciary. I'm not in Public Health anymore. I'm on on judiciary. I'm on LEPC again, but I'm on Rules and Journal for the House, and I'm on the Appropriations Committee.
Do you have any leadership positions?
No.
Okay. Can you describe, well, there's been a change in the House power structure, obviously, so from this, like your first term to this term. Can you describe that briefly, or are we far enough into the session that you can kind of contrast the two different situations?
I think there's a lot more dissension, partisan squabbling, even early on in the past two sessions than there has been in this session. Now, that could, I suppose, just be the honeymoon, but I don't know. The governor seems to be bending over backwards to be bipartisan as best as she can, and the speaker, I think, the same way, and that was clearly never the case in the past administration.
Okay. What bills have you introduced or sponsored or co-sponsored?
This year?
Well, just through the 3 years. 3 years. This will be the third year.
God, I don't remember.
Main ones, or ones that you think are maybe more important than others.
I was the prime sponsor and speaker for repeal of the pension, of the special legislators' pension. And I worked pretty hard on that. Obviously unsuccessfully, but it's still a big issue. Let's see what else. There was a whole series of bills that a coalition of us sponsored to restore money to the universities, both years. And 89 we were a lot more successful. The universities were fully funded. In 90 we clearly weren't successful.
Was this a coalition of legislators whose districts included the universities?
Regions, as well as other legislators interested in educational issues.
Can you identify 3 or 4, or maybe even 1 or 2, main debates, controversies, memories, victories, defeats on the floor or in committee that you've had since you've been here? Or witnessed, I should say.
My first year up here, at the very end of the session, there was a debate about a $9 million mistake in the K-State budget that I don't know who made, but
Goodness.
in any case, it was a big one. And I guess there was a sense that really and truly, were it not for that mistake, the governor would have funded it. But because of the mistake, and because of some anger on the part of the Republicans that Katha and I had won our elections and defeated Republican incumbents who represented K-State, they really took us to task at the microphone. And even the speaker got off his chair to scream and yell about how terrible we were for having run dirty campaigns against these fine gentlemen, because we insinuated they didn't support K-State. And that's a debate that I'll never forget, because that night, it was very late, and that night, all the Republicans except one lined up against K-State and voted against giving them the $9 million. And the next day, they were ashamed of themselves, and
must have been late in the session.
Over to apologize.
Oh, really?
And when the bill came back from conference committee, they all voted to reinstate the money. So I will probably not forget that, because
Do you have any incidences or particular experiences that were humorous or embarrassing or funny or anything like that since you've been here? Sometimes those are hard to remember.
Yeah. There's a lot of humor here, but I don't know if I particularly remember. Oh, well, there is one, yeah. I do remember. There's a House member. He's no longer here because he's on the Board of Tax Appeals now, but he, I went down to do something on some bill in the well at the House, and he brought a box down there for me to stand on. And that broke the House up. I laughed, too, of course.
That couldn't be Charlie Laird.
No, it wasn't. It was Jack Shriver.
Jack Shriver.
Yeah,
okay, good.
And then
they brought a box
laughed.
down for you to stand
yes,
on.
Because I wasn't tall enough, he thought, to reach the microphone. And then I did, the first time, I guess, that I intended to change my vote from yes to no or no to yes, I don't remember what it was. And I stick my hand up to do it. Dale Sprague was in the chair, and he kind of just passed me by a few times, and then he said, Sheila, if you want to tell me something, you're going to have to stand up. I can't see you. Everybody got a great big laugh at that.
Oh, that's pretty good. How many women were in the legislature during your first term? Do you remember the number? I can look it up.
I think it was like 33.
Well, they're 33. They're 35 now.
Oh.
That's probably about right. We've gained about 2, I think. 2 or 3. Okay. Now I want to ask you a few questions just about yourself. Are you a native Kansan? Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and I grew up on Long Island and in suburban New Jersey around New York City until I went to college.
Where did your family live? And were you live in a city or a small town or the country? Or?
A suburb.
A suburb?
A suburb of New York City.
How large schools did you attend in elementary school and high school?
I don't know how large my elementary school was. My high school was in suburban New Jersey, and it was smaller than it would have been had we stayed on Long Island. Let's see. I think my graduating class was like 273.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not too small at all. It's a pretty good size. What were your young years like growing up? What kind of things did you like to do and participate in? And how many children were there in your family as you were growing up?
There were 2 of us, my sister and myself. I'm the older.
Mm-hmm.
We were, I think, probably your typical suburban family. We were Girl Scouts.
Mm-hmm. How
my
long?
mom was a troop leader. I was a Girl Scout forever.
Forever, okay. Let's see, I just ran into somebody else that was a Girl Scout too, so that's interesting. Yeah. Have you been a leader, Girl Scout leader here?
Yeah, I was when I was in college. I have not been recently. I was just talking with Maria Anderson about that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Did you take debate in high school?
No.
No debate, okay.
I don't even know if we had a debating club in our high school. I did debate in junior high school, actually.
Did you?
Some,
yeah.
yeah.
What organizations did you participate in that may have prepared you or given you some experience and skills that helped you here in the legislature? Can you think of any? Even through recent years, not just through your...
Well, recent years, I think that it's clear that the lawyer organizations were helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Trial lawyers, the Bar Association, and having been through law school, I think is really good training.
And you were in practice where, as an attorney? Did you practice in Manhattan then?
You mean when I was elected?
Mm-hmm. You were practicing law.
Still do.
And you still do, Okay. Where did you go to law school?
North Carolina, Chapel Hill.
Mm-hmm. Where did you do your, now you talked about undergraduate and graduate work. You had a master's degree. Where did you do those?
The undergraduate degree was at Antioch College in Ohio. And the Master of Public Health from the University of Michigan.
Well, that's interesting. How old were you when you were first elected to serve?
37.
37. That seems an average age.
Is that right?
It does, yes. Now, you commute back and forth to Manhattan, or where do you?
No, I stay here.
You stay here?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do a little. I mean, I probably am home in Manhattan 1 or 2 nights during the week.
Mm-hmm. Your husband is in Manhattan then? Does he come down sometimes during the season? Do you have children?
No, this is the first one.
This is the first one. Now, is this going to be a record-setting child born on the floor of the house or something like that?
I hope not.
When are you?
June 1.
June 1. Okay,
Yeah.
well, that'll give you a little time to get this over with anyway.
Can I interrupt just for a
Sure.
second?
I think I need to back up for a minute. You practice law in Manhattan. Were you in a practice with some other
I was
attorneys?
in.
I mean, are you? I guess we're not.
No, I was, and then I left it, so now I'm on
Okay.
my own.
You're on your own now. I see. Still in Manhattan, though.
Yes.
What does your husband teaches at the university? Does he do anything else in the community? Is he active in?
Yeah, he really is.
Thank
Let's
you.
look more. So, let's see. He is on the advisory board at the Douglas Center, which is one of the community centers. He is in Sertoma. he's on the board of Sertoma.
Mm-hmm.
He's an optimist member.
So he's really in a lot of civic clubs around the community.
Yeah.
Did he support you? Did he work real? I know he supported you, but did he work real hard in your election campaign? That's interesting. Went door to door with you and all that sort of thing. Do you think that your service in the legislature has changed you yet, anyway?
Yeah, I think it has. In some ways, when I sort of read about government in other places, in other states or at the federal level, I've become a little more cynical.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not good, but I've also become a little more sympathetic to what the representatives in those situations are going through, the sort of political pressures that they're having to deal with and balance, and maybe have a sort of insider's understanding of that I didn't have before, and so I think that that's probably good. It's changed me in that I think that I have a much greater understanding of different walks of life than I ever did before.
That's interesting.
Right. And I think I was an extraordinarily tolerant human being who had, except for people who are close to me, of whom I'm very judgmental. And that's probably not always very good. People farther away, my clients, my associates, I sort of don't tend to judge them. But I think that, just like most human beings, I tend to sort of circulate in circles with people who are like me. And the experience of campaigning, going door to door, and being at the legislature has really exposed me to lots of people who are very different from me.
Very interesting observation. Do you think the being in the legislature has changed how other people see you and treat you?
Oh, yeah. But I never lose sight of the fact that the reason that they're treating me differently is because I'm in the legislature. I mean, I've even seen a difference in the way people treat me because the Democrats are in the majority now than they used to treat me, or because I'm on the Appropriations Committee now, which I wasn't before. And I know it has not one lick to do with who I am. So I try to keep that really in mind, because I think it can go to people's heads.
If you were to identify one or two reasons why you ran, I think I kind of skipped over that. Can we back up a minute? And was it people asking you to run, or what made you finally make that final decision to put your name on the line and run?
I tell you what, I was sort of at the point in my career with my law firm where I was thinking about leaving the law firm.
I see.
And we sort of thought that if I got my name out in the community, I would have a better chance of making it as a lawyer on my own. I would have a successful practice. And our anticipation was that I could never win, but that I would at least get my name out in the community, and then I would have a sort of rip-roaring law practice. And instead I won, and I have terrible law practice now.
So what you planned isn't exactly what happened. What are your plans for the future?
I really like serving in the House.
So you like to continue?
And I think I would like to continue. I think. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to obviously have to juggle baby now. And the law practice, and so I'm going to try.
Well, that's certainly more than most people have to juggle. How are you going to do the juggling? Have you made some plans, or you've got time?
We know that the baby will be 7 months old or so when the next session starts. And I suspect that I'll need to get some child care arrangements up here for the next session. I don't know.
You're kind of waiting. Well, you can't do a whole lot of planning that far ahead, but you're planning to bring the baby with you here. And
I think so. My husband's job is nice and flexible.
Sure.
Too, and a lot of his male colleagues do bring their babies to work. And I think that's really neat. But it's going to depend on whether I'm still nursing them.
That would make a big difference. Have you seen any change in the political roles or expectations of women in the House and Senate here in Kansas? Since you've been here, it hasn't been that many years, but possibly long enough for some changes to have occurred.
Well, I mean, it's quite clear that the women in the Democratic caucus have leadership roles now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I first came, I'm not sure that they did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we had our minority whip was Donna Whiteman at that time, and so she clearly was in a leadership role. But I don't remember thinking that the Republicans had any.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong about that.
Mm-hmm.
Rochelle Chronister could have had a position of leadership there, but and so the trends that I've sort of identified for women back home is that I see women stepping into more leadership roles and also into more powerful positions on more powerful committees.
Mm-hmm. I think I mentioned to you before we started taping this interview that we had identified some statistics that showed that there were never more than 4 women in the House at one time prior to 1975. Since 1975, that number has grown every year till we're at 135, or 35 now, out of 101. Can you identify any reason for that? What happened in 1975, or why is this trend seem to be occurring?
I think that, what I would say is that there are women who are taking a more active role in all sectors of society now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from the clergy, all the way to industry, to politics, to everyone. I think maybe it's just a normal growth of women into positions of control, power, and responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And so
It's 6 o'clock in the evening.
I'm surprised it didn't happen a little earlier because but then again, that mystique probably wasn't until the mid or late 60s, and so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It just seems late. 75 seemed late.
Yeah.
It seemed very recent. Yeah.
But I think that there's never been a time probably in our history where women have been so ubiquitous in all kinds of places.
Mm-hmm. Maybe that's it. Is there anything I haven't asked you that I should have asked you that you would like to say for this interview?
I can't think of anything.
Okay, well, if you do give me a call, we will. First, I'm going to ask you a few questions about your terms of office, your elections to office, and that kind of thing. Then I'm going to ask you a few questions about yourself, and you can answer